Hi, everybody. Welcome virtually to my home. I'm Erin Donovan, and I'm a fraud engineer at ActiveCampaign. And if you check out the chat, which I couldn't figure out how to pin a post, but we are currently hiring at ActiveCampaign. So check out our openings. If you get pumped throughout this talk and you just want to check out where I work, definitely check it out. And if anything jumps out to you, feel free to email me. That's my work email. I'm happy to help out with anything, especially if you're new to security. We do have lots of security roles, but we have tons of other roles as well. So if you have any questions about anything, definitely reach out to me. And by the end of this, we're all going to be friends. So shoot me an email. I'm happy to chat about stuff. So I'm really excited to speak with you all today about my journey from into my security career from education. But before we jump into my experience and my story, I wanted to start with a quick activity. So let's go to the next slide. So if you guys have a pen and paper handy, grab them. I'm a little bit old school and love a pen and paper. If you don't, that's totally fine. Your computer will work, or just thinking about it in your brain will work. But we're going to take a minute, and if everyone can just write down one insecurity that you have at work. This does not have to be if you're in the security field. This can be whatever field you're in, whatever you do. What is one thing that you are insecure about? I'm going to do it too. I have a timer going. We'll resume in 1 minute. Okay, our minute is up, but feel free to keep writing. There's no quiz at the end of this. Really just sit back and relax, because I'm just going to tell you a little story about my experience. So feel free to keep writing, but put that to the side and if you're finished, and we're going to come back to it in a little bit. So who am I and why do you care about what I'm talking about? Well, we're going to go way back. And when I was just a little senior in high school, a little 18-year-old deciding my whole future up ahead of me, I thought that there were about 4 jobs in the world. Teacher, business person, which Lord knows what I thought that was, lawyer, and doctor. And so the only thing that I had really ever been good at growing up was working with children. So I thought I wanted to be a teacher. My mother is a teacher. I had done some shadowing of teachers during high school. I nannied a lot. I was convinced I wanted to be a teacher. So I went to college for elementary education, because that's what you do. And I got all the way into the end of my senior year, which, if you're not familiar with education, your big finale is student teaching, and you get to be a teacher. And so suddenly I was a teacher. Now, it didn't all go perfectly. I ended up student teaching in 2nd grade, which what I wanted to be teaching was middle school. So for those of you without children or who are not around children very often, there is a big difference there. 2nd grade is about 7 or 8 year olds, maybe. I don't think it's 6. I think it's 7 or 8. And then middle school is like young teenage kids. But unfortunately, when I was graduating college, there was a bit of a recession, and teachers were getting let go of in Chicago, where I'm from. So I didn't have much of a choice. So I ended up in 2nd grade. I'm trying to make the best of it, going along. And I realized about halfway through that I just don't like teaching. It's just not for me. This is not the time you want to realize that in your education career. They give you lots of opportunities to realize that before you get to the end. I just blew right by all of them. I remember very clearly getting on a phone call with my father and telling him that I didn't want to be a teacher anymore. And he was like, cool, that's great. You don't have to, but you will graduate, because you're at the end of your education. So I graduated, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And when you have an education degree, it's a little bit limiting. There's pretty much all you can go into is teaching. Teachers can go on to do other things, but a lot of them require different certifications and more schooling. And I didn't want to go through more schooling not knowing what I wanted to do. So I fell back on what I had always done, and I went back to nannying. And I ended up, after about a year, finding a family that I loved, and I was with them for 6 years. Still love them to this day, still friends with them. And for about the first 4 years, I didn't think about any other career. Like, I loved this. I loved going to work every day. Well, okay, let's be real. Maybe not every day. And like that dog in the picture, I would get very tired some days. But overall, I loved my job. It was wonderful working with the kids. I got to make a difference in their lives. And I just had a lot of fun doing it. And then about 4 years in, they had their last child. They knew that this was going to be their last child. They told me, and I had this sudden realization that they weren't going to need me full time for the rest of my life, because of course they weren't. I probably should have realized that a little earlier. And so I thought, oh gosh, what am I going to do? So I thought a lot about finding another family. But when you're nannying, and I never lived with the family, but you're still spending like 10 to 12-hour days with them. So you have to really like who you're spending that time with, not dissimilar from a normal job. But it's a little more personal. You're in their home. So I thought about finding another family, and I definitely could have done that, but I just realized that I didn't want to. I didn't want to go through the stress of finding another family. I wanted to kind of try something new. So I really thought about what I was interested in. I thought back to college and what classes I had liked that were outside of teaching. Because luckily, thank goodness, colleges make you take a lot of other classes, which I'm sure I dreaded at the time. And I remembered that I had taken a coding class of some kind. I honestly think it was to avoid a math lab, which is hilarious because people, now that I am an engineer, think I'm very good at math, and I am not. It's not my forte. Logic, I'm great at. Math, no. So I remembered really liking this coding class. I don't think we did anything difficult. It was like early 2000s. I'm sure we just made a basic HTML site, but what I loved is creating something out of nothing. And you can put some lines of code and then suddenly you have a thing. And I just really liked that creative aspect. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could create things for my job? And so I started to look into how I could get into coding. And I think at that kind of around that time, Facebook was a big thing, and Mark Zuckerberg just taught himself to code and wasn't that great. But I was like, that's not me. I can't just learn on the side. If it is you, that's wonderful, but I need a little bit more structure. So I started looking at boot camps. I looked at getting another undergraduate degree. I looked at getting a master's degree, and I stumbled upon DePaul, who has a really great program that can bring you in from not having any computer science background and get you ready in a matter of months for a computer science master's degree. And I was like, oh, that seems good. So I kind of was weighing that against a boot camp. And honestly, the boot camp gets you through pretty quickly, but I worried it might be limited in the way that education degree was. I was very preoccupied with having a lot of options when I graduated. And I also knew that I could get that finished in a matter of months or maybe a year, but I didn't want to leave the family that soon. So I had the time to pursue a full master's. So I started looking more seriously at master's programs, and it came down to DePaul versus UIC. Both have very highly rated computer science programs in Chicago. I didn't want to move. And I will be honest with you all. Hopefully you can keep my secret, and this is recorded, so I guess everyone will know forever now. But I ultimately chose DePaul because UIC wanted me to take the GMAT, and I just did not have time for that. So I ended up picking DePaul, and I was really nervous to submit the application. I remember we had to get a letter of recommendation and just basically write why you wanted to do this, and I super overthought it. I had a mentor at the time through my alumni sorority, and she was like, just say you want to do this. This is not a big deal. You're going to be okay. And definitely helped get me through those baby steps to get me into the program. So I entered the program. I was still nannying during the day, taking computer science classes at night. Luckily, they did a lot of stuff so that you could do it virtually or in person. So that was really flexible for me. And but I had no experience actually in the job. All the experience that I was getting was through homework assignments and things like that. So I'm building that up, but I get to about 6 months out from graduating, and everyone starts talking about internships. And I was like, oh gosh, that's probably a great idea. I should do an internship. So I start applying for internships, and a lot of them, I became a little discouraged because a lot of them from their interns really wanted a full-time employee. And that was really tough because I didn't have that experience. So a lot of them would look at me and not want me because I didn't have that background in the field. And so I was kind of struggling with that. And then I got a call from TransUnion, which is hilarious because at the time I didn't know what TransUnion was. It's a credit company for those people who don't, like the big three. Experian is another one. Equifax for their big breach a few years ago. I didn't know what TransUnion was. I don't remember applying for the job, but they called me. Apparently I'd applied. Thank you, past Erin. And I went in for an interview. Now, TransUnion does this really cool thing with their internship program. They do a big internship program every year, and they invite all of the tech potential interns, and you get to kind of do like a career fair. They have all the hiring managers there, and you get to just go around the table and meet with a bunch of them, and just kind of see where you might fit. And so I was really nervous because that kind of thing is not really what I like to do. I get a little nervous in networking situations, especially coming from a nanny background. I would go to networking events and I wouldn't feel like I had a real job, even though I definitely did. So I psyched myself up. I was like, just go. If you talk to one person, that's a win. And then you can leave. No one will ever know. So I went. I ended up talking to actually a few people. But the very first person I talked to was the VP of security there. And that is kind of how I wound up in security. He told me that they were looking for someone to come and write automation, someone with only engineering experience to help their team code some solutions, especially like automation for different various parts of the team. And he didn't care that I had no security experience, that I didn't know what in the world he was talking about with security. And but they would teach me. And that if he got anything out of his view on interns was if they produce anything, that's a win. But really, they're there to learn. And they hired a bunch after. And so I was like, great, this is perfect. No pressure. Awesome. So I took the chance and I went to work there as an intern, and I had an amazing experience. I started off working for the Blue Team and in their Security Operations Center, otherwise known as the SOC. For those of you who don't know, the Security Operations Center typically takes in a lot of the alerts and they triage them. So a tool might alert, and then someone needs to look at it and say, is this real? Is this a problem? Is this indicative of a bigger problem? All of those kind of things. And they get them in tickets. And so I was able to not only learn how to triage the tickets and what it meant to even do security at all, but I also was able to start to automate some of that process for them via coding, help to make their ticketing system better and things like that. And it was a lot of fun to experience that. And then after about a year doing that, they did hire me on full-time after. I got to go and work for the red team, which was kind of the other side of the security house. And while a lot of the penetration testers have experience coding, so they were good, they needed some help with some of their scanners and doing some things that they just didn't natively do through the GUI. So how could we custom code these solutions? And it was exactly everything that I had wanted to do when I thought about going into coding, was creating things, creating solutions. And even though I maybe wasn't doing the front end design of a website I thought I'd be doing, it was so fun to kind of catch the bad guys and help the team do that. And that was great. And even though I didn't know anything about security, they held true to their word and they taught me a bunch of stuff. They helped me get some SANS certification. So I was really learning a lot about security as I went along, but without having to be, security analyst and be responsible for the alerts. That was like, they all laughed because that was my hardest thing, was closing a ticket because I was so worried I'd miss something. So they all like to laugh at me doing that. But then I would come and help them out and code something and they'd be grateful. But so all of those things were great. But one of the things I didn't realize, I should have switched slides. Oh my gosh, you guys missed out on this meme for a while. I'm so sorry. Enjoy this cat meme. My slides really are not that important. One of the things that I wasn't prepared for coming into a more office structure is the feeling of being a fraud, which my coworkers earlier today pointed out to me that I am on the fraud team and now referring to myself as a fraud, so we can all giggle about that. But I had no idea what I was doing. When I was a nanny, I felt very confident in the decisions I'm making. I've been doing the job for so long. I knew what I was doing. And also, I only had two bosses, the parents. And if we disagreed, I would just default to what they wanted because they're the parents and ultimately it's their children. As long as it, was obviously not dangerous for the children, which it never was. But I never felt like that was an attack on what I knew or didn't know. I always felt like I was very confident in the choices that I made. When I got into the office and like the real world, I had no idea what I was doing. I was flying by the seat of my pants. I felt like a fraud the entire time. I was doing a bunch of these projects on my own without other engineers. So I never really had anyone giving me positive or negative feedback, really not a ton of direction. As long as it worked, it was okay, which has its benefits. But you also feel like you're kind of treading water and like it's just kind of crazy. I also didn't really talk to anybody about it. I'm sure that TransUnion had a women's group at the company as a whole, but in security, I was one of maybe 5 women on a team of, I think, around 50 or 60. So I didn't, not that you have to talk to women about it, but I just didn't really think of it as like a problem other people had. I looked at all the people that I worked with and they seemed super confident, and I just thought I was the only one who felt that way. So I just really kept it to myself and didn't tell anyone about it. But if you had asked me at that time, I would have told you I was fine. I loved hanging out with all the dudes. I had no problems. It was great. I was not going to tell anyone about it, including myself, apparently. So I got to about the end of a couple of years at TransUnion, and I realized that I really loved creating these solutions, but I wanted a little bit more of a traditional engineering experience with staying in security, but having more engineers around me, getting more feedback, working with GitLab properly. Now, like, I look back and I'm like, that was silly. There's no proper way. But, I wanted a different experience. So I use Built-in Chicago. I highly recommend Built-in. If you take nothing else from this, remember Built-in. They are great. They have great companies on there. I think they even now have a remote area where it's all remote jobs, but they are in different cities. So they'll have like Built-in LA, Built-in Nashville. So remember Built-in. They're great. And so I found ActiveCampaign, and they had a security product engineering team, and I'd never heard of this before. So I applied. And basically what the team is they build security products for our customers. So spoiler alert, I now currently work at ActiveCampaign. I got the job, and I started working on things for our customers, which ActiveCampaign is an email marketing solution for small to large businesses. We actually started as a solution for really small businesses, and we've just kind of started really building for it at the enterprise level and growing up to that. So I love being able to help small business customers. And what we would build is things like MFA, so multi-factor authentication for our customers to turn on their accounts to make their accounts more secure, which is awesome. After a few months of doing this though, and learning a ton of stuff, like how to create Jira tickets so that projects are really simple and small for anyone to pick up, and how to use GitLab pipelines, which still frustrate me to this day. And I break GitLab every time I try to use it. That's okay. I'm getting better. I realized that I was missing the catch the bad guys part of security. I love our customers, but building things for them did not inspire me in the way that automating things for a team and really thinking about the operations side of security did. So the probably only silver lining I've come across of COVID was that the society as a whole and a lot of the email marketing platforms started to see an uptake in phishing attempts. So if you think about ways that you might be phished, someone might send you a fraudulent email or text message, and probably they contain a link and they're telling you you've won something or you need to log in because something's happened or whatever else. Well, our platform allows you to create websites, send emails, and send text messages. And we cater to small businesses. So we allow you a 2-week free trial. And, if we put on our little phishing hat, this is like a gold mine if I'm a phisher, right? Because I just get to sign up for free and then send you all the spam. And if we're not being careful tracking that, then they're going to get away with it. And then that looks bad for us. And it's not great for anyone. I don't want any of you to get phished. So we started a fraud initiative, and I was able to be on that. And then from that, we actually were able to build out a whole fraud team. And I've been able to kind of build this team from nothing. And it has been so fun and so amazing. I get to actually work on operations tickets again, which I didn't think I'd want to do, but I kind of, as long as I don't have to do them all the time, and I can now close tickets. This was a big one. But aside from my career movements within the company, a lot of the things that I found at ActiveCampaign were just super helpful in the sense of community. So ActiveCampaign has a lot of different women or different groups, ERG groups, and one of them being a women's group and a women in text group. And I got involved with those. Now, when I say involved, I don't mean like what I normally mean, because I can be a little bit, I had a teacher once tell me I jump in the deep end right away. That's true. But I actually didn't do that with this. I just kind of joined the Slack channel and watched what people were saying. And I felt not so alone suddenly anymore. I was able to talk to other women who felt that same imposter syndrome or fraud things that I had felt. And that was so reassuring. In fact, the women in tech group ran an event where a cohort of them came together, and they went around and shared different reasons they felt fraudulent in their roles or imposter syndrome, et cetera. And then they all went around and debunked how they knew that was not true for that person. And I was unfortunately unable to participate, but I did a little mini mock one with someone who was. And I thought that was just so wonderful because it gives you the tools when you're feeling like that to debunk it in your own head, and sharing something like that suddenly makes it not so scary. And you're able to realize that you're not the only person who thinks that way. And I just, without even going to the event, I suddenly felt like I wasn't so alone. And now I have a group of people that I can be vulnerable like that with, and who will understand where I'm coming from when I say it. I've also been able to finally have a mentor. This is a weird thing that like I did to myself, but I'm always the person to jump in and be a mentor. I've never been a mentee before. And about a year ago, the engineering department said they were going to set up people with mentors. Did you want to be a mentor or a mentee? And I just thought, gosh, I think this time I'm just going to be a mentee and like see how it goes. And I was partnered with my mentor. We still meet now over a year later. We've built this great relationship, and he's wonderful. He helps me figure out different social situations that when I don't know what to do, or he helps me figure out if like I need some ideas for how things work at Active Campaign. He's been here longer than I have, and he has so much knowledge about the company. So he's able to be like, oh, you're having a problem with this? Here's the Google Doc that explains it. It's wonderful. So I highly recommend being a mentee every once in a while. So that was just a wonderful experience, just as rewarding as when I was at TransUnion and I was a mentor for the new incoming interns. And that was wonderful too, but just being a mentee, something great about that. And then lastly, I was able to kind of use a lot of different things I learned from education in my job now. One of the things that I've been able to start recently for my team is a way to highlight and shout out each other once a week. So everyone gets a turn. We're going kind of round robin throughout. I have a list. It's a secret list. Don't tell anyone. And every week I approach the team. It's a surprise for whoever it is. And I ask for nice things about this team member. That's it. It's optional. But everyone participates, and everyone wants to say nice things about everyone else. And then I post those things in our Slack channel every Monday. And that person gets a surprise of being honored with all the nice things that people are saying about them. And I think, honestly, I partly got the idea from like a star of the week thing in elementary school. If you think back, I'm sure a lot of your classes did, like someone is highlighted and they get to talk about themselves or do something special. And I just thought, just because we're adults, we still need to hear nice things and do nice things for each other. So that's been a great way to kind of take stuff that I had from education and use it here. I've also, if you haven't experienced it, sometimes security can be a little emotional, even though it's, we got a lot of men in the field. Sometimes it can be a little emotional, and that's not a bad thing, but we're under a lot of stress. We have a lot of stuff that we protect, and that can get kind of crazy. And I think my emotional intelligence from education, from my different background, is helpful when we're in those situations and we need to communicate with an outside team, but we need to make it so that they can hear it, and so that it's not, I don't want to say dumbed down, but a little easier for them to understand, because not everyone is a security professional, and we have to be able to communicate outside of our group. And I think I've been able to help the team a lot with that. So reminder to switch slides. No slide deck would be complete without a slide of Leslie Knope. Love her, inspired by her. I'm often inspired by myself as well. And I hope that all of you can take something away from what I've said as some inspiration of any kind. But if you need a reminder, what should those inspirations be? Well, first off, take a risk that scares you. If it doesn't scare you a little bit, it's not a risk. So do that thing that you're worried about doing, but that you think would make your life better. I'm here to tell you, I'm your sign. Go do it. And know that any risk you take will feel scary. Do all the prep work so that you can feel that gut feeling that you know you're making the right choice, and then just do it. Because you never know where it will lead you, and you could end up in a fraud engineer role. Who knows? Who knows where you'll go? But wherever you go, find your group or start one. Find your group of women, find your group of trusted people, and cling to them and use them and be vulnerable with them, because that matters to have that group. And we are all there to support each other. When I get nervous to share something, I just think about how I would feel when someone shares it to me. And I hope everyone else, when I share things, feels that way. I'm just going to think that they do. And then the last thing goes with that, share your insecurities with them. When we share things, it lightens the burden of them on us. And that's not to burden anyone else, but it's just to let you know that everyone feels that sometimes. And hopefully whoever you're sharing it with can tell you if that's just not even true, if it's not even a thing that you need to worry about. And so for those of you who don't know Brene Brown, I will give you an extra challenge. Go Google her. She's amazing. all my friends will tell you I love her. But she says, what we know matters, but who we are matters more. And you never know how your experiences can positively affect a team, whether that's security or anything else. So you might look at it like, I have no direct experience doing this, but your experience matters and it is important. And just who you are is important and can help the team in so many ways that you don't even know yet. So don't discount yourself just because you might not have exact experience in the field. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is a challenge. So in the beginning, we wrote down an insecurity, and I'm going to challenge you all to go share those with a friend or trusted coworker. And in that vein, I'm going to share mine with you all. And then I actually have a very quick funny story about sharing mine. But so my insecurity is, if I'm not always being irreplaceable at work, I will be replaced. And I think that causes me sometimes to take on too much or feel like I always have to be doing a million things to show that like I'm important and valued. And my little funny story with this is I did a quick practice of this with some coworkers, which I was actually like terrified to read that to them. More scared than I am now because, you know, we're all friends now, but I don't have to go to work with you all tomorrow, but I do have to go to work with them. So I was so nervous, but I did it anyway. And after, they were all like, yeah, you did amazing. But they're also like, we think you're irreplaceable. We think you're amazing and you don't need to be doing those things. So hopefully that's an example of some feedback that you can get that will be empowering when you do something that scares you and share that insecurity with someone else. Thank you for coming to my chat. And up at the top, I couldn't figure out how to pin it, but we do have openings at Active Campaign. So if anything I said inspired you to check out a role in security or any other role at Active Campaign, please use that link at the top. Check them out. There's my work email as well. I would love to hear from you if you need anything. We're all friends now in this room, so definitely feel free to chat with me. Or I'm also in the Slack for Dave Security, so let me know if you want to Slack, if you want to talk. I am happy to talk to anyone about anything. Could be about Brene Brown or Leslie Knope or whatever. But definitely let me know. So we're like right on time. Oh, that was great. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. And if you have any questions, email me. Thank you.